So right now we're bringing in the spokesman of the National Grid Corporation, spokesperson Cynthia Alabanza, para kamustahin naman po ang lagay ng ating kuryente, ang ating supply. I think yesterday you had a lot of issues regarding the NGCP, but maybe now spokesperson Atty. Cynthia Alabanza might be able to answer it. Ma'am Spokes, kamusta po ang kuryente natin?
Yes, good afternoon to everyone. Actually, nag-improve yung condition ng sistema both in the Luzon and in the Visayas grid for today. Also, primarily because there were several plants that went back online, and also nakita natin there's a slightly lower demand for today compared to yesterday. But yes, we are still on yellow alert.
Okay. But attorney, alam naman natin, National Grid Corporation provides the delivery system, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it will still depend on the available supply.
That's absolutely correct, which is why we actually release this information because we see the status of the supply and the demand, but we always have to explain that NGCP doesn't have control over the operations of the power plant, which supply the distribution utilities and the cooperatives.
Cynthia, pwedeng ipaliwanag muna bakit nagkaroon ng outage yung 19 power plants at yung 3 ay nagkaroon ng scale down na services. So anong main reason dun sa outage? At nagkaroon ng red at yellow alert?
Klaruhin ko lang po na yung mga 19 power plants in Luzon na naka-unplanned maintenance shutdown, hindi naman po nangyari yan ng sabay-sabayan. So tinitinan ko po yung datos. Merong ibang, I think there were 5 power plants na 2023 pa nag-maintenance shutdown. Hanggang ngayon hindi pa nakababalik. But these are all smaller plants. I think the biggest impact really happened in the last couple of days, within the last week or so, where you saw several larger power plants, thermal power plants, na nawala sa sistema. And they contributed talaga around 1,000 plus megawatts comprised of 5 power plants or so na nawala sa grid. So yun ang malaking impact.
Pero di ba dapat may ancillary di ba dapat may ancillary services yung NGCP para mapigilan yung ganyang klaseng mga problema?
Yeah, the ancillary services, sir, these are this is electricity that NGCP procures from the same pool of suppliers that are meant to balance po frequency and voltage. So, in a period of deficiency, pag kulang na po talaga yung supply ng kuryente, yung mga kontrata po natin, yung mga power plants, tumatakbo na po yan. In fact po, yung definition ng yellow and red alert, nakapin po yan sa level ng ancillary reserves that are available to the grid. Pag yellow, hindi na po sapat to meet the dispatchable reserve. Pag red, wala na rin po pati regulating. But again, we are just buyers also of electricity for ancillary services. So if these plants go offline, we really have nowhere to get these services from.
Okay. It's not the first time that NGCP encountered this unplanned maintenance shutdowns. And the last time, hiningi nyo nga na sana mag-improve yung coordination sa mga ganyan para nga maiwasan tong mga ganitong pangyayari. Anong progress nun? Your suggestion to improve the coordination? Maging national, actually, parang whole of nation ka mo. I remember yun yung suggestion ninyo eh.
No, actually, Ami, you're absolutely correct. This is not the first time this has happened. In the last 5, 6, 7 years or so, every year, NGCP has to explain why there is a deficiency in supply. But again, we emphasize now we're a transmission service provider and we really just depend on the available capacity from the power plants. When the power plants go offline, we really have no control over them. I think in terms of coordination, I'm not sure if we're talking about the Panay outages. Because I think in that case, kaya nagkaroon ng power outages doon kasi hindi naka-fine-tune yung protection systems ng planta doon sa sistema ng NGCP. And I think that one's been resolved. But even then, in Panay, there is also a dire need for additional base load plants within the island itself. And, you know, we've always advocated that the islands, especially the Visayas, should not rely on interconnection for its own requirement. Dapat each island should be sufficient in itself. Then the interconnection is just to facilitate better pricing for the cooperatives as well as for contingency when needed.
Okay, you mentioned that if the supply is short, that's clearly not the NGCP's problem. But you mentioned na rin, attorney, yung interconnection, okay? Because it has been argued in the past na that's part of the commitment of NGCP is to improve the grid. And it's been argued, or it has been pointed out, there's hardly any improvement on the grid or additional lines for the delivery of electricity, whether it's there or not, that the NGCP has undertaken. So, what's your response to this, attorney?
Well, dagdag lang doon sa sinabi ni Patrick, no? Di ba may several hearings this past 2 years sa Senate? At yun yung criticism ng Senate, na yung earnings ng grid, a certain percentage, ay hindi nagagamit dun sa pag-improve ng infrastructure, halimbawa storage. No? So anong status na ngayon nung ganong klaseng criticism ng Senate? Baka mapatawag na naman kayo sa isang Senate hearing.
Thank you for those questions, Pono, because actually the projects that we have been criticized for not finishing are actually all energized already. Last year, we energized the 500 kilovolt backbone from Hermosa to San Jose here in Luzon. There's still a little problem with the second circuit, but the full capacity for what it was intended is already there. So wala na tayong tinatawag na projection. Lahat ng power plants that are in Luzon are able to be dispatched to where they're needed. We also recently energized last January 26 the Mindanao Visayas interconnection line. So again, all the capacities that are extra in Mindanao are now are capable of being delivered to Visayas, and then from the Visayas, because of our existing Luzon Visayas interconnection, nadadala na rin sa Luzon and vice versa. And most recently, last Monday, April 8th, we inaugurated in the presence of President Marcos, yung Cebu Negros Panay. These are all big ticket projects that, you know, I have to bring this up because Mr. Henry C. Jr., our Vice Chairman, it's his gripe. So, tatlong proyekto yan, but our recovery for those projects is less than 1% because of regulatory lag. So, in terms of improving the grid, we've increased more than 320 billion over the last 15 years. Pero yung regulatory lag, medyo na nag-isip rin kami dyan kasi we aren't allowed to recover. And on the last point, sir, on the storage, I just like to point it out din po, na the current DOE policy was recently revised. Dati po kasi since kami pinapayagan mag-invest in storage. Now, that was, I think, revised last year or thereabouts. Now, we're allowed now to invest in storage, but only as a last resort. The priority for storage systems is still those for the generating investor. So that is something that is not being prioritized in terms of the grid. Our position on that is storage is supposed to be it's technology. It's not it's either generation, transmission, or distribution. It will take on the nature of the sector that invests in it. So kung kami mag-invest, that should be transmission. But again, that is what it is. Those are the policies that are in place.
Okay, attorney, nabanggit mo yung inauguration of a Cebu Negros Panay grid or line or something like that. Does this mean, attorney, that the outages that we saw in Panay Island won't be repeated anytime soon?
Again, no, like kanina yung nabanggit.
As far as it can be traced to the NGCP, no? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, attorney.
Sinisingil po sa amin yung proyekto, and it was really being pinpointed as the solution to the power interruptions. But as you can see, all our projects have been, our big ticket projects, of course, we always have projects in the pipeline. Our big ticket projects are now energized. Yes. We still see the red alerts and yellow alerts in the Visayas and the Mindanao grid, the Visayas and the Luzon grid. In Mindanao, dahil maraming pumasok na planta over the last 10 years or so, wala tayong nakikitang problem. So I think it's about time that we really focus on the supply side. The NGCP has long been advocating a more holistic approach to energy planning. And it can't just be transmission kasi tagapag-deliver lang po kami. I think Mr. The President mentioned it in Bacolod. I heard him say in an ambush interview that, it's a good thing that the transmission is ready, but if there is no supply to transmit, you'll still see the problem crop up. And I think this is exactly what's happening the last 2 days, because I think we're going to be, right now, projection natin is yellow alert for the Luzon grid until the end of the week, and for the Visayas, the yellow alert will persist till next week. And that's assuming, of course, na walang additional plants na bumagsak.
Okay.
4 days ago, 4 days bago nung outage, sabi ng Department of Energy, there is no power crisis. Parang di ba may contradiction? No? Yung sinabi ni Secretary Popolo Tila, that was just 4 days before the outage.
I don't really want to contradict the Secretary of Energy, but on our part in NGCP, we really never make assurances because we have seen over the past several years that no matter how well laid the plans are, when somebody goes out of the off plan,
yes,
you can see that there will be an impact. Kasi I think the basis of these statements for yung tinatawag natin base, kasi every year, we do submit, NGCP submit to the Department of Energy the grid operating and maintenance plan after we consult the generators. Kasi the point of that is we tell the generators, this is the projected demand for the year, huwag kayo magkumpulan in one step, especially in those times na mataas ang demand, para hindi natin maramdaman yung pagkawala ng capacity nila when they're on shutdown. However, it's really the unplanned maintenance shutdown that have an impact on the supply and demand balance. Yesterday, it was very illustrative of that. We had, I think, almost 24 power plants that were offline or at diminished capacity. 19 of those 24 were on unplanned maintenance shutdown. Tapos in terms of capacity, only 700 was planned, 1,800, the bulk, was unplanned. So I think the 1,800, 1,200 was just 4 or 5 planned.
Okay.
Attorney, at this point, apart from unplanned maintenance shutdowns, and yung mga problema nga with the generators, what are the biggest hindrances to NGCP's expansion plans, yung day-to-day operations as well?
In terms of expansion plans, it's always really been a right-of-way and permitting. I want to give a shout-out to the Department of Interior and Local Government. Secretary Avalos has been such a great help over the last couple of years, especially in pushing the Base 3 project. But, we really need political will on the side of government to help push our permits. Kasi minsan, by experience, magsasubmit kami ng requirements for a permit, and then after we submit it, manganganak. So, we're really working on hoping that these permits and the timelines, kasi meron na tayong Executive Order 30, which mandates a 30-day processing period for national infrastructure projects that or energy infrastructure projects that are of national significance. Pero hindi parati siyang nasusunod. In terms of right-of-way, it's also very difficult because sometimes, especially if your landowner is influential, then they will pressure us to do a reroute. And rerouting is not as simple as just picking out pegs from a pegboard and transferring it to another hole. Minsan, pag nag-reroute ka, yung configuration ng tore, magbabago yung kung saan siya nakaharap. So it's not that easy to also reroute. So those are the things that we really have challenges. And of course, I just have to mention this. In particular, for those 3 projects that I mentioned, nagkaroon kami ng 3 PRO from the Supreme Court. Yung Hermosa San Jose that I mentioned na na-energize namin last year, yung second circuit, kamakailan lang na-lift yung PRO. So almost 1 year na tenga yung second circuit because of a temporary restraining order. So those things really are things we cannot control, and we really ask for the support of the government.
Okay, last question from Ronald.
Yeah, Attorney, yung tanong ko ay related sa solar power. Dahil hindi na naman ganun kakonte yung ating mga solar power ngayon, no? At lalo na ngayon, summer na, dapat meron tayong excess power kesa deficit. So, anong nangyayari dito sa ating solar power?
Well, yung solar power po, that's correct, no? It's good pag mainit ang araw. Ang problema lang po talaga, ang challenge, I don't want to say problem, the challenge with the solar farms is that they're intermittent, meaning if there's there's cloud cover, then it's as if you lost a plant to an unplanned maintenance shutdown. And in order to maintain the integrity and the quality of the power that comes from the solar plant, we need standby power to replace it immediately. So that's one challenge with solar farms. Plus, in certain areas that are not so developed, the peak still is at night. So sa gabi, unless may kakabit na battery storage yung solar plant, wala na rin siyang harvest.
Okay.
So, which is the dynamic now between Visayas and Mindanao, because we have a lot of solar plants in Negros, and the peak in Luzon is at 2 p.m. So during the daytime, Visayas exports power from the solar to Luzon, where you have a lot of industrialized areas. And then at night, baliktad naman. It's Luzon that exports power to the Visayas, where many islands are still not as industrialized. So their peak requirement is at 7 p.m. in the evening.
Okay, Attorney Cynthia Alabanza, maraming salamat po sa oras nyo.
Yes, thank you very much.
Salamat.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Attorney Cynthia Alabanza, spokesperson of the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines.